When I was 12 years old, my parents had just started trusting me enough to leave me home alone. We lived in this peaceful, quiet little town where everyone knew each other. It was the kind of place where you didn't have to worry about locking your doors at night or looking over your shoulder. When you were out walking, the streets were lined with big, old trees, and most houses had spacious yards where kids could play safely. Our neighborhood was just a short walk from this charming little village center with cute shops and family-owned restaurants. It was the kind of town where nothing bad ever seemed to happen, which is probably why my parents felt okay leaving me by myself at such a young age. I still live in that same house with my parents today, but the memory of that night still gives me chills. It was a weekend, and my parents were heading out for the night. Usually when we were little, my older sister and I would stay with our grandparents, but this time my sister was away. And I guess my parents figured I was old enough to handle being alone for a few hours. They were pretty young parents, always active and social, often going out with friends or taking little trips on weekends. Before they left, they gave me some money for pizza and told me to call if I needed anything. For a 12-year-old kid, this was like hitting the jackpot. I had the whole house to myself, video games lined up, and the promise of hot, cheesy pizza later. It was going to be the perfect night. I remember being obsessed with James Bond games back then. As soon as my parents' car pulled out of the driveway, I fired up my PS2 and started playing this game called Night. I must have played through that game a dozen times already, but I couldn't get enough of it. The hours flew by as I immersed myself in the world of espionage and action. After finishing another playthrough, I decided it was time to order that pizza. There was this local place called Johnny's just down the street. It's been closed for years now, but back then, it was the go-to spot for pizza in our town. I called in my order a large pepperoni with extra cheese, and settled back to wait, my stomach already growling in anticipation. About 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I paused my game and went to answer it, expecting to see the usual friendly face of one of Johnny's regular delivery guys. But when I opened the door, I felt a chill run down my spine. The man standing there was definitely not one of the usual guys. He was older, probably in his 40s, with a long, scraggly beard. He wore a black trucker hat pulled low over his forehead, and something about his whole demeanor just felt. He thrust the pizza box towards me without a word. As I fumbled with the money my parents had left me, trying to count out the right amount. "You alone here?" His voice was gruff, almost a growl. I felt my heart skip a beat, remembering all those stranger danger talks from school. I lied quickly. "No, they should be here any minute." I tried to sound casual, but my voice cracked a little. The man just grunted in response, took the money, and left without another word. I shut the door quickly, making sure to lock it, and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. I took the pizza to the kitchen, ate a few slices, and put the rest in the fridge. Then I headed back to my game, determined to forget about the creepy delivery guy. For a while it worked. I lost myself in the game again, the hours ticking by unnoticed. But around 11 p.m., something happened that made my blood run cold. The doorbell rang again. At first, I thought maybe my parents were home early and had forgotten their keys. But then I heard a voice. A man's voice, unfamiliar and slightly slurred. "Hey kid, open up. I need to use your phone." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no way I was opening that door. I crept to the window, trying to peek out without being seen. Through the gap in the curtains, I could make out a figure on the porch. It looked like the same man who had delivered the pizza earlier, panic rising in my throat. I backed away from the window and started to head upstairs. But as I reached the stairs, I heard a sharp intake of breath from outside. He had seen me through the glass panel in the door. "I know you're in there, kid. Come on, just let me in for a minute." The man's voice was louder now, more insistent. I bolted up the stairs, my legs shaking so badly I nearly tripped. From the safety of the upstairs hallway, I heard the man start to bang on the door. The sound echoed through the empty house, each thud making me flinch. Then, suddenly, for a moment, there was silence. Then I heard the creak of our backyard gate opening. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might burst out of my chest. I ran to my parents' bedroom, the only room in the house with a lock on the door. I slipped inside, locked the door behind me, and dove under the bed, trying to make myself as small as possible. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of footsteps inside the house. Someone was walking around downstairs. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob, tears streaming down my face. I was terrified beyond anything I'd ever felt before. The footsteps started coming up the stairs, slow and deliberate. I could hear the floorboards creaking under the intruder's weight. He tried the handle of my parents' bedroom door, jiggling it a few times when he found it locked. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't try to break it down. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps moved away. I heard more movement downstairs. Then silence. I stayed under the bed, too scared to move, for what must have been hours. Eventually, my parents, unable to reach me by phone, had called the police. I heard voices downstairs. My mom and dad, frantic with worry, and the calm when I finally crawled out from under the bed, shaking and crying. My parents were there to wrap me in their arms. The police found that our back door had been left ajar, and the window next to it had been slid open. That is, how the intruder had gotten in. As they questioned me about what had happened, a horrible suspicion began to form in my mind. Had the pizza delivery guy told someone I was alone? Or worse, had it been him who came back? The next day, my parents took me to Johnny's. They wanted to see if I could identify the delivery guy from the night before. The manager seemed nervous when we started asking questions. He insisted that their regular delivery guy, Phil, had been working last night, and that he didn't match my description at all. But something about the manager's defensiveness made me even more suspicious. I never saw that creepy delivery guy again, and the police investigation didn't turn up enough evidence to charge anyone. But I know what I saw, and I am convinced that either the pizza guy came back himself, or he tipped off someone else. Needless to say, we never ordered from Johnny's again. It took a long time before my parents trusted me to stay home alone after that, and even longer before I felt comfortable being by myself in the house. To this day, I'm extra cautious about who I open the door for, and I always make sure to lock up tight when I'm home alone. I still can't shake the feeling that it was the pizza guy, or at least someone working with him. It's a chilling reminder that even in the safest seeming places, you can never be too careful. That night changed me forever, and it has a story I'll never forget. A stark warning about the dangers that can lurk behind the most ordinary of situations.